Hey, I'm Ange.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers, because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold? Stay tuned to find out as we chat to today's mystery guest.
I need my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows our mystery guest and the other doesn't. And today, Beck, it's your turn.
Yes, it is.
To discover the gold in our special guest, Ange Clark.
Welcome to the show, Ange.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, a couple of weeks ago, we had two Becks on the show.
I
Now
know.
we got the
No, it's
two
my turn.
Anges.
I know. Best name,
Wow,
Ange.
did you do that on purpose?
That's what I think.
But it's actually Angelique.
Angelique.
It
Ooh,
is.
that sounds very
So-
posh.
Would you say Angelique? Or
Oh, yeah, the French would say Angelique. Yeah,
Angelique.
absolutely.
So what should I call you today? Angelique?
Well, I think we need to determine which is Ange 1 and Ange 2.
Yeah. Ange with an E. Ange
Yes.
without an E. Me. Anyway, Ange is 40 just last week.
Happy
Congratulations.
birthday.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
We'll talk about that later. Married with 2 boys and is from Brisbane.
Excellent.
So that's all you're going to get, Beck.
I
Now-
feel like I'm about to be kicked out of
You
the
are.
room.
Off you go.
I need my sugar.
So Ange with an E. Welcome.
Thank you for having
Good
me.
to have you here. Now, we know each other because you are my sports nutritionist.
I am indeed.
And in fact, you were recommended to me, and then I had to go on this really long waiting list to get an appointment with you because you are in such high demand, because you are incredible at what you do. And you train elite athletes, don't you? You talk to them about their nutrition, you're an exercise physiologist, got a master's degree in, you're going to have to tell me.
Nutrition dietetics, yeah. So
Yeah.
The exercise came first. So
Right.
that was my major love and passion. And then the diet followed that because I learned very quickly that we can't be the best that we can be from a performance perspective unless we get the nutrition on board.
But you particularly specialise in over 40 women, which
Now I do.
you're now part of.
I know.
Welcome to the other side.
Thank you.
But particularly because of the perimenopause, postmenopause stage and getting the diet and nutrition right. And I love what you say, because you say this to me all the time, don't rely on the scales.
Oh, it's music to my ears.
Yeah, scales don't tell you but we still do.
Yeah.
And so your purpose really is to try and get education to women in this area about their nutrition and their health and their exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to start changing the narrative as well, because I think there's such a terrible culture that's associated with the menopause transition. And it's such a beautiful point in a woman's life where I almost say it's a becoming. You really do start to question some of the ridiculous diet and exercise practices that you did prior to this moment in your life. And you realise, well, if it isn't working by now, we need to find another way.
Yeah, and I love that. And this is going to be such a great conversation, particularly for me, because I'm in the over 40 period of my life too. And I'm sure be relevant for many of our listeners as well. But one of the biggest challenges, you said, all this education that you've had around sports and nutrition, the weightlifting, all of that, you said is actually your children.
Oh, isn't that a lesson?
Yes. And I think we all parents and all mothers can particularly say that. They do come to challenge us sometimes. So the gold that I see in you, Ange, is that you've found something that you're interested in and you have thrown all of yourself into it. You've been educated. You're wanting to do a PhD. You've got a master's degree. You keep educating yourself. The information keeps changing, so you keep changing with that. And I really love the fact that you really want to change the narrative for women that are really, really struggling in this area. And we go through so much with our mental health when our body and our physiology is changing. And so I think that's just real gold that you're really giving keys to women in this period of time in their life. So I think that comes from a real heart to want to make a difference. And that's such a beautiful thing.
Oh,
So
thank you.
we'll see if Beck can pull this out in your story and we'll bring it back in. She's back.
Hello, I'm back.
You are.
I had a bit of giggling.
Oh, lots of giggling. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to go for something a little bit different to start this one. If you could describe the perfect Friday night, what does that look like for you?
Oh, wow. That's a great place to
great
start.
question. Boom. Fist pump from me.
So, I mean,
I do those high fives, Booms. I always miss or just think I'm going to hit you with my ring.
Well, you did, but
yeah. Anyway, back to the question.
Well, I was going to say it's going to start with something physical anyway, so I'm glad that you were down that theme. First and foremost, I like to say I always start with the end in mind. So if we're going to end with Friday night, I'm going to say what my day looks like for a Friday, day to day anyway, because I just absolutely love Fridays, right?
Yeah, yes.
So it will always begin with some element of exercise, and that depends on whether or not I can tag team with my husband to get out of the house first.
Right.
So that is my peace, that's my calm, that's what I do now to ground myself first and foremost.
So do you have a race between who gets out first? The other one has to stay and look after the kids until you get back. Is that right?
Yeah, it kind of goes like that. And we get up really early, so sometimes it's not me.
How early's early?
Look, most of the time my husband's out of the house before maybe 5:30 in the morning.
Which is dark at the moment.
It's really dark. It's really dark, yes. So we do own a gym. We own 2 gyms actually. And so we've always been early risers from that aspect. And you would think as you grew into business that maybe you could choose your hours, but no, you just kind of end up working more.
Yeah,
and here we are. So it starts with an element of exercise. I get the kids off to school after that.
Yes.
And then I find my peace. I do some of my awesome work. And then I come back and I plan what I'm eating for Friday night. And I think that is the key.
Love it.
To anything is to know what is for dinner.
Yeah.
That's what the kids always ask when they come home from school.
100%.
How old are your children?
So I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, both boys.
Yeah. Oh, nice. That's I love middle childhood. Such a fun age.
Yes.
That's one word for it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is one word. I believe that, in some part I see them as my junior athletes in the making. And if I look at it from that perspective, then I kind of understand them. Otherwise, I really do struggle. And it is probably one of the biggest key factors for me in business now is that I have to keep my kids at the forefront of what I do because business has taken a really different turn in terms of my intention and what I was starting this for. It started off as being something that is I thought I'd get more flexibility to actually take care of the kids and be there and run them to sports and things like that and cook for them. Yeah. But it turns out I really actually don't like making school lunch boxes.
I don't know if anyone does really, to tell the truth. I ended up just saying to my kids, make your own, because they were coming home with everything still in them. It's obviously you don't like what I make.
100%.
So dinner, what does that look like?
So dinner, particularly on Friday nights, will always be some element of fish and chips, but I'll try and healthify that so we can all eat it.
I know, I'm shocked.
This is not what you've been telling me.
Building this picture of a health, exercise,
you
lifestyle,
said chips.
And then you're like, fish and chips? That's not
100%.
what I was expecting. With a side of salad.
Of course.
Yes.
And pretty amazing salads, I must say.
And, food needs to be fun. So we can make good, healthy food absolutely delicious at the same time. And I think that's one of my biggest missions is to make sure that we don't miss out on the fun in nutrition. I think for so many years, particularly women, they have pulled back. They've tried to make themselves small. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that they become miserable and they don't particularly like the journey that they go on. Yeah. So for me, it's all about how you can eat well, because we know that that is going to, of course, contribute to your energy. Make sure that you're doing all the wonderful things that you're born and designed to do on this planet. But, life is not fun without carbohydrates.
Love that. I love carbohydrates too. Give me pizza. I want to go to Italy.
You might be pushing it a bit there, Beck. You're over 40 now. Come on.
True. I know I have to adjust. But I'm picking up on from that one question, I'm picking up on 2 major themes in your life. Exercise and food.
Bingo.
Would that be correct?
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
That was a good question. And children, family.
Yep, amongst the mix, yes.
Yes. So you obviously own your own gym.
Yes, so we do. I don't do a lot of work in the gym anymore, so
Yeah.
I decided to branch out on my own and start my own business, and
Yeah.
that's just solely focused on nutrition, the nutrition aspect. Yeah.
But your husband's the owner of the gym, isn't
Yes.
he? Like, so he runs the gym.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So a
And I
partnership.
train there a lot.
Yes.
Right. So you spend a lot of your day with the nutrition side of things, is that right? So
Absolutely.
what does that look like?
So it has changed over the years. I think if you asked me probably 5 years ago, I didn't envisage that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but
Yeah.
it is so fulfilling and I absolutely love it. And so part of my job is for, the clinical consulting side of things. So obviously I'm trained in doing that. And now I really just niched into active perimenopausal women
Right.
and how they can best fuel and nourish their lifestyle, but not just from an activity sense.
Yeah.
It's for longevity. So this is a really critical key moment in their life
Yeah.
that we need to start making some lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And I find that they're just way more receptive to it once
Yeah.
we've reached middle age. So it's really beautiful to see that transition and
Yeah.
that focus and that intention move away from weight loss,
Yes.
and just focus a little bit more on nourishing themselves.
Because I've heard a lot of things that weight loss doesn't particularly work for menopausal women. Exercise doesn't necessarily result in weight loss for menopausal women. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you would be correct. And
Yeah.
we also know that weight loss doesn't necessarily equal better health. So
Yeah.
I think some people can take that to the extreme. I've had roles in my jobs in the past where I have taken that to the extreme level personally and taken clients through that sort of high level of physique and body composition change. And unfortunately, first and foremost, you're not happier. I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest key to remember with these types of practices is that this attainment or this gold standard of, being the thinnest or the leanest or, losing the most weight. Unfortunately, for most people, they equate that to being happy too. And in actual fact, you're the least happy and also the least away from health as well. So there has to be a bit of a balance. And what we see, I think, in that perimenopausal transition, unfortunately, but we also need to be aware of it, is the physiological changes that happen purely as a result of our age. So as women, our estrogen will start to decline. It actually happens after the age of 35. And then what happens, probably we look at maybe 2 to 4 years just prior to menopause. And menopause is the 12-month anniversary of your last period. So we stop our menstrual cycle. But what happens in that time frame, that really critical time frame that we term perimenopause, is we see this increase in belly fat or visceral abdominal fat.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We call it, and terrible
When
term,
you
not
said
my
rolls before, I thought you were talking
menopause?
about belly rolls. But
Yeah.
you're talking about
Bread rolls.
I've got some rolls too.
But we actually also see at the same time a reduction in lean muscle mass, which actually helps our basal metabolic rate. It helps keep us eating what we need to be eating to function. And if that drops, our total energy intake actually needs to drop as well. Sometimes because of that shift, we see a drop in muscle, an increase in fat mass. Our weight doesn't necessarily change too much, but our body composition has completely changed. And that's the critical factor. We need to understand the physiology behind that and then look at nutrition and exercise to help mitigate those changes. And that's what I get excited about.
This is such a good topic.
I
And
know.
For all the men out there who are listening, please don't feel awkward. Listen to this and get to know your wives. What's going on in their life?
Psychologically, it really impacts us, doesn't it, when our body composition is changing, but we haven't done anything different in our diet or our exercise.
Yep, 100%. And this is what we generally see. And most women just kind of wake up in midlife and go, how did I get here? I don't fit my clothes anymore. And also from a mood state perspective, we also need to understand our female sex hormones are declining. So estrogen's on the decline. Progesterone is actually declining as well. And this is what we call and term our anti-anxiety hormone. It's the thing that kind of raises up and gives us that sort of cushion and that buffer of feeling pretty good. And so if we're not getting the same dose or the same hits of this, if our menstrual cycle is changing as we age, then we're really going to start to see that affect us on so many levels.
Yeah, and then the whole weight side of it as well affects your mood too, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And how we feel about ourselves too.
Yeah.
So what's a good balance in terms of exercise for a midlife woman?
So we really need to make sure we're doing things to mitigate that muscle mass decline. And that's actually for men as well. So that's not just significant for women. We just bear the brunt of it because we lose estrogen. Estrogen is what we term anabolic. So it helps us lay down more muscle and more bone. And we see a lot of times in the older population, osteopenia and bone mineral density starts to become a big factor. And that's purely as a result of estrogen dropping, but overall we actually start to lose muscle mass after the age of 35. So men and women will experience this if they're not doing something to stop that change. And it's just called sarcopenia. So it's a nice fancy term that they'd like to use, but it's clinically relevant. And so what we see then is we go, right, well, what can we do to stop that? So the first thing we need to do from an exercise perspective is to stop exercising just to lose weight. We're actually exercising now for the purpose of actually maintaining muscle mass. And we need to strength train. So this is where resistance training comes in. It's actually even more important for us to be focusing on that. I would say, at least minimum twice a week, we're looking at doing that sort of strength training component, if not maybe 3 times. But as we age, we also need a little bit more recovery, so we can have a bit more time in between just to recover from those sessions too.
Yeah.
So she's responsible for me killing myself in the gym 3 times a week.
Right. sorry. In future, you will thank you.
Yes, I will.
And is this how you know each other? We should find that out too. Tell me how you met each other.
Yes. Well, Ange came recommended to me because I started on my fitness journey, and to take me to the next level, she got recommended. So I got in touch, and the waiting list was like 6-8 months or something like this.
Wow.
Because she's incredibly good at what she does and very well respected. She trains Olympians and
Amazing.
so is at the top of her field.
Wow.
So we're very honoured to have you here today,
very
Ange.
lovely
I
of
feel
you.
so honoured to. Let's get all the information out of you
I
that
know.
we
This is
possibly
like,
can
we've
in
got
this.
30 minutes.
Okay.
Well, probably 10 now, but yeah.
And Ange, it's interesting because a lot of those same principles that we apply at elite level sport is actually more beneficial for the everyday athlete. I call them the everyday athlete. This is you. This is maybe you, Beck, as well.
Yeah.
She's going to get there.
Oh, yeah. Maybe one day.
She works with me.
By the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the thing that we need to start realising, is that it actually can make more of an impact, more of a change when we actually, relate it back to what I term the everyday athlete. And you don't need to be elite to operate from these principles. Everybody really needs to do this. It's just that unfortunately the information hasn't necessarily been there, because who wants to study middle-aged women? And if we looked at the literature, a lot of our exercise and nutrition science has actually been done on young collegiate men.
Right.
And so we're now entering this zone of going, we're actually in this period where this information is actually new. Women are jumping up and down about it. Oprah's, singing the praises of menopause. And so the awareness is so awesome to see.
Yeah.
And we're starting to get a little bit of traction, which means a little bit of funding, which means we can go and actually study what is actually happening. So it's a combination of my past nutrition science and taking that, morphing it into listening to my clients as well as they aged, because I aged with them. And so I've got now masters athletes who were at Olympic level are now finding that they are not getting the same results from doing the same things as they would even at that level. So we do need to shift the focus. We need to shift what we're doing, and we just need to listen to the person in front of us as well and realise it's a legitimate thing. It's actually there, and there's some stuff that we can do about it as well.
I think you really hit something here, because if you can make middle-aged women feel happier about themselves, you can change the world, girl.
That's what I'm trying to do. That is my mission. Okay, you got my goal.
Love it. Nailed it.
Yeah. Okay, so because this was me, right? So a middle-aged woman realising she probably needs to change something. Where do you start? Because, for some, they may not have even ever gone into a gym. They may never have lifted any weights. What is a good baseline to begin?
Well, I actually think even before that, we can just focus on our nutrition and food. Obviously I'm now focusing on this, and I say, look, resistance training is definitely important, but you go and do that. There's many ways and places that you can do that and feel comfortable with, and you just got to start, really. That's all it is. And so I then would probably say it's more beneficial to focus on what they're actually putting into their bodies. So we can actually look at our nutrition and say, can we get some building blocks, some good foundations to help support that muscle, and also to help stop us putting on extra body fat around the midsection. And that's the trouble part. It's not necessarily the stuff that we call subcutaneous fat that sits between skin and muscle. It's the stuff on the inside that sits next to our internal organs. And as our waistline starts to increase, so too does our risk for chronic lifestyle disease. And so we literally can change our trajectory if we actually are looking at it from a health marker perspective. A couple of things that we can do. The first thing we need is to make sure that everyone can try and look for protein, what I call HBV, or high biologically valuable protein, in every single meal. So this is breakfast, lunch and dinner, Most of us are probably bottom heavy when it comes to protein. I mean, we spoke about Friday night dinners, right? So most of us will probably have a little bit more protein at the night time. Yeah. We need to space it out through the day and we need to drip feed it in. So definitely I think most of my ladies struggle to get protein in at breakfast, and then they kind of increase it as the day goes on. But the other thing we need to be doing is looking at fibre. So fibre is the biggest key factor from a gut health perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So more fibre.
Absolutely. We are not getting enough fibre. And if I can say, if anyone does remember, and this is, showing my age as well, the Go for 2 and 5 campaign. Does anyone remember that in the 80s?
I'm not from Australia,
yes,
so it's
yes,
probably...
I do actually. Yeah.
So the whole it was a public health message that was like 5 serves or 5 cups of vegetables every single day and 2 pieces of fruit. So if we just start there, I mean, I can tell you the statistics: 94% of the population isn't actually achieving that.
Yeah.
No.
So if we just start there.
So you're in the top 6% then.
Look, I'm a little bit of an overachiever.
Actually, Ange, like earlier when we were testing the mics, you were asked what you had for breakfast, and I thought your breakfast sounded very impressive.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us again what you have for breakfast?
Absolutely, because this is an example of how you get protein into your actual breakfast, right? And to start the day with that. So I had an egg, a whole egg. I know a lot of us are very scared of the egg yolks, and that's okay. It will not increase your cholesterol. We've debunked that. Yes, good. Put an egg in there. I had some strained yogurt, and this is particular brands such as maybe Siggy's, YoPro, Chobani, all of those. And there's many other kind of generic versions of that as well in the supermarkets you can find. But we're looking for a strained yogurt. Yeah. So strained yogurt has a higher protein percentage because of the process that they've actually gone through. Yeah. Also actually has a little bit more calcium, which is really important for that bone health as well. So I mix that in with my fibrous oats, so rolled oats, mixed all in together, a little bit of cinnamon, because remember it's all about taste and flavour, a little bit of vanilla extract. And these sort of little things you might not think, they make a difference, but they absolutely do.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's got to taste good.
This is the thing.
This is why I was said when we did the mic test, I was very careful what I had for breakfast this morning because I knew I was going to have to be confessing it in front of my nutritionist.
I love it. And I always use them as examples of going, well, if somebody else can do it, you can do it too. It can be really easy, and it sounds a little bit complicated, but once you get it rolling, it's actually really easy to do.
What got you interested in all of this in the start?
Oh, geez.
What was your journey?
Well, to be really honest, I was absolutely fascinated with body composition change. I was like, how do you do that? So I ended up in looking at bodybuilders because they were the ones that had the best physiques, and I thought, gee, that's empowering as a woman. So I was 17 years old, walked out the day I graduated high school, walked out, went into the first women's only gym in Cairns. Yeah. Tropical Far North Queensland, very small country town. And I walked into there and I said, I want to put on muscle. And the trainer almost fell over backwards, and she trained me for an entire year for free because she was so enthusiastic that someone had walked in that actually wanted to put on muscle rather than lose weight. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Well, how do you think that at 17? So, were you active in school?
Yeah, I was a really fat kid to start with, actually.
Right.
Yeah. So, which actually got me into activity. So I saw all the cool kids kind of playing sport, and I wasn't a kid that moved very well because of my weight. And it's no fault of anybody else's, but like most other families, my mum ended up going back to work. Our lunch boxes became pretty much banged together, just whatever convenience foods, and I went through adolescence. Hormonal change, right? Yeah. So here we see I love working with what we call now the second adolescence. So this is the perimenopausal stage of women. But if I think back of where it did kind of start, I really struggled with understanding my body when I was going through adolescence. And I think so many young women, unfortunately, aren't taught. We're taught from an anatomy perspective, but we're not taught about our menstrual cycle from a physiology perspective, how it's going to influence us, and how we can actually best utilize that as our superpower. Yeah. As opposed to just like, I want to shut down my period. And I get a lot of adolescent athletes, junior athletes coming through the ranks, exceptional athletes. Oh, yeah, my GP's put me on the pill because I don't want to get my period when I'm competing.
Yeah.
And then in bodybuilding, I saw it again come up. Oh, well, the leaner we get, the more we lose our menstrual cycle. Right. Is that healthy? So all these sort of questions kind of started and influenced my journey, and it just got me asking why. And I think, unfortunately, I wasn't too happy with what the answers were, and it kind of leads you back into the literature, hence the reason why at some point I probably will do a PhD.
Yeah.
Too many questions to answer.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And it's great that someone is researching all this for the good of others as well, other people going through it. Because obviously it's not information that we've always had, is it?
No, and it's unfortunately, and I can tell you, in 2020 was the first paper that came out that actually told us how to study a female. 2020.
Wow.
By 2023. That's literally 3 years ago.
But who did the study?
So Dr. Kirsty Elliott-Sale was the one, and we've had many researchers that have been pushing for this in that space. But unfortunately, women, because we had a menstrual cycle, were actually a little bit too hard to study because at any one moment, our hormonal fluctuations can change.
Yeah.
So we're not really getting, I guess, a solid reading when it comes to, what they're looking for, because it will change week to week, month to month.
Yep.
It's really interesting.
So having children, has that also encouraged you into these studies for the good of your children's future? Is that something
it's interesting. I had 2 boys, so I'm like, I was
Yeah.
waiting for a girl. Because here I was, I'm going to empower these 2 girls. I've
There's
got
still
2
time.
nieces.
You're only just 40. It has been
Still
known.
time. Oh no, gosh, I'm really embracing my reduction in my menstrual cycle. I'm like, yes, I'm looking forward to that. And I think that's part of the narrative, the culture I'm changing.
But then when that time comes, I'm sure there's a sense of loss.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think it's all about that perception, right? So at any one moment, we need to appreciate that our bodies are unique and freaking amazing. And that's what having kids taught me.
Right.
So I really appreciated my body. For the first time, I grew a baby. Mm-hmm. I got that thing out. Then I kept it alive.
Yeah.
And then I breastfed and I was like, this is so cool. Like,
it's actually incredible what the female body goes through in a lifetime.
And this is again, it's a come to Jesus moment, because I said, holy moly, I have just punished myself with exercise, like lifting heavy and to the nth degree. And I think when we're young, we recover a little bit quicker, we're bulletproof. So, I really push myself to that nth degree. I really reduced food to try and manipulate my body composition because I was fascinated with being this experiment. And so I look back and go, I'm really sorry for what I did, because for what my body can do and for what I realised it could do after having kids, I was just like, I'm just going to be a little bit kinder now. And so, that's what I want to
Did
push
you do
out.
bodybuilding yourself?
I did.
And you competed?
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Yep, at national level.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that before children?
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Because that is just a full-time job, isn't it, to train for that?
Absolutely. And I was doing it while I was studying too.
Wow.
So, and I look back and go, how did I even sit that exam? Or, imagine what my concentration would have been like if I had fuel on board. So, yeah, I think it's
So your
very
experience from childhood of being overweight really drove you strongly into that. Were you always a high achiever during your childhood as well?
Absolutely, yeah, on multiple levels. And to even my mum says to me, Ange, you don't just go out and play, go out and have fun. I'm like, no. And that sort of same recurring theme happened in university, and I was like, I just want to know everything I can know. Yeah. But what I've realised, and as I've gotten older, is that more so there is a feeling behind stuff as well. So intuitively, I think it's called gut instinct.
Yeah.
And when I look at the science behind that, there's a lot of science grounded in that. I think we just need to listen to some of those messages that we do get along the course of the way. But for me, I just was always kind of driven to get to an end point. But what I've realised now is there is no end point. So it's nice to have fun as well.
And I love that you enjoy putting taste into food and making everything enjoyable as well. A big thing when I talk to women about body image and stuff is really embracing the stage of life that you're in as well, not being too hard on yourself. So do you find that, speaking with menopausal women, do you find that comes into it and just you might be a little bit more weightier, but here's some things to help you, but also keep the joy during this time?
100%. I think it's why my wait list is so long.
Yeah. I was going to say, because that's the journey you've been with me. I get on the scales, my weight's always fluctuating. But then you do the skin fold test and you say, actually, you're better than you were the last time, even though my weight might be higher.
Yeah.
My actual composition is better.
Because your muscle tone's stronger, is that right?
Yeah, because I've been killing myself in the gym for 4 days a week.
I think that's it. And it's to teach women to look for other measures of success, because we're solely so focused on this scale, right? And we live or die by it. And it's ridiculous to think that a number actually is going to dictate how we feel and the moods that are associated with that. But I need to be very compassionate and very empathetic to that, because we're coming through, most of my women have come through with a lot of baggage. They've come watching their mothers do Jenny Craig, diet after diet. They've probably done multiple diets themselves. And so they've finally hit this position where they're like, holy crap, like I've realised if any of those things worked, I wouldn't need a dietitian to help me to do this again, you know. And so they're coming through with this sort of failure mindset and mentality. And I've loved my time working with elite level athletes, because what I realised is there is a certain mindset that goes and associated with that. If we could take a little bit of that and just make sure that we can give that and impregnate that into every other, perimenopausal woman's brain, and just to give her the idea and the ability of what she's accomplished and achieved so far is well more beyond her body. Yeah. It's what she brings to the world. And so I'm here to help them, really take care of this physical vehicle. Yes. That's it. It's kind of really basic at the end of the day. Yeah. But what they get out of the transformative journey is a more sense of my purpose. Yeah. And that to me is way more rewarding than nutrition.
And I have to say, you have really been amazing in that, because you've helped me to change my perspective on it's actually sometimes only just small little changes 100%. That make a big difference. Yeah. And then, there is this concept of you've got to kill yourself in the gym. I've said it a number of times. But the reality is I actually feel great for doing that. And it's just getting over that hurdle to start. But I feel the fittest, the healthiest that I've ever felt in my life.
That's awesome.
And part of that is mindset, a change of perspective on scales so that it doesn't send me low when the scales go higher. Yeah. And feeling good because I've got more energy.
And you sparkle, Ange.
Oh, thank you. But I do. I feel
that's the gold. Gold.
Like a lot of people think you're in the decline of your life. I feel like I'm in the prime of my life.
Yeah, and, that's great.
And you have definitely significantly helped towards that.
So Ange, tell me how you implement purpose into people's lives.
It's really a realisation on themselves. Like that's actually one of the first things I do. So we sit and we have an initial assessment and I go, great, and I'm going to give you your meal plan and everything. I'm going to go away and write that all up, but I'm not going to give it to you till next week. And they're like, are you joking? Like I've waited so long to see you, and then you're now going to withhold my meal plan for another week. And I said, I've got something better for you to do in between now and then. And the first thing I do is actually an intention workbook. And so we sort of sit there and go, well, what's your intent and purpose of this journey? Because if this is the last diet that essentially you're ever going to need, why not start with the end in mind? So I actually make them paint a picture of what that optimal state of health actually looks like and what they would do with it. Yeah. So not just, I just want to get there. I'm like, well, what are you going to do when you're in this amazing body that has all this energy and can fit into your clothes and blah, 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 blah. And I think it gives women that confidence to be able to do just the life stuff. That's really what weight loss is about. It's about having that confidence to go and do everything that they want to do. But unfortunately, it's an oxymoron, right? We get smaller, and we get smaller physically, but also we get smaller across the board in every other aspect of life. Yeah. So if we stopped focusing on that and we said, what more could it give you? Exactly what Ange has said. She's got more energy. Yeah. She's coming into her own step, into her own stride. And really these are the things that I go, oh my God, and now you've got all this years of knowledge where you're actually bloody awesome anyway. I love it. Just realised like the pennies just dropped and they're like, actually, and it is, it's a really nice way when the penny drops and women go, oh, actually I don't care what anybody else thinks of my body anymore. That is so empowering. So that's kind of essentially how we kind of start, and they just go, oh, they're a bit taken aback, but it's well worth it, because when the road gets hard and when life gets in the way and when, stuff happens, you then go, oh, remember those intentions that we first set out to achieve? Have you started to see any of this come to fruition? They're like, oh, that's right. And again, it's about setting other success measures up so they realise that they are still achieving, as opposed to just using scale as the only measure of success.
Because midlife really is the beginning of a whole new lease on life. And I think each section of life is so special and beautiful. Like raising children is such a beautiful stage of life. But when those children are adults, as are mine now, and you're starting to look at the next stage of life, it's another whole season that you can be excited about and energetic about. And I'm really excited for this next season. I think it's great. It allows so many more opportunities, and you just have to think a bit differently. But what's your big casting your vision forward as you do for your clients? What's your big vision?
I don't think anybody asked me that.
I was wondering where you were going with that, and then boom, you deliver it.
I think, for me, I always talk about $1 million impact. For me, it never really, my journey and my purpose never started out as something that financially I was chasing. And I think a lot of people do careers or end up in careers just to make money, basically. And I get that, it's a normal part of life. For me, I don't know where this drive comes from. For me, I think it's opening my aspect now of this new chapter, now that I've entered this 40 realm. It's about really figuring out who I am behind the labels, behind the degrees, behind the science.
Yeah.
I'm starting to now listen to that inner voice and that kind of soul purpose and that little person that is always there, but you never really realize, and you kind of just shut them down for a while you do all of the things and be the busy that we are all the time, particularly perimenopausal women, lots of things we're juggling. So I'm taking more time now for me. I'm actually really purposely putting in moments where I can remove myself from my current environment to be more creative, and I'm actually naturally more creative. I've started playing my violin again.
Great. Lovely.
So I've and this is what I love about the kitchen. I feel like that science, it gets really heavy sometimes, and it also becomes it becomes limiting. It actually limits you a little bit. So I go into the kitchen to find my creative flair and my space, and I can just pull that together and just bring together and bring to life something that I can offer.
Are you ever going to write a cookbook?
I would absolutely love to write a cookbook. I actually have 2 books in mind. So it's just about finding that time. But again, I think my lesson is to not be so rushed. I need to learn patience, and when it will come, it's there.
Yeah.
It's just, I just don't have the capacity at this moment in my life.
Because I know, like, as you've told me, part of your vision is to impact quite a wide number of people. Like you said, like 1 million women. So you're going to have to, there's got to be something of yours out there, whether it's a podcast, YouTube. I'm just encouraging you here. Books on nutrition and...
immediately I was thinking I'd love a cookbook that you've written.
Yeah, definitely. Or even online tutorials of how to cook. So, there's definitely so much more. So much more to come from you, Ange. So I really think we're ready for some gold.
I think we are too. I think you're an amazing woman. I love all your energy and excitement and joy that you carry. And I love that you've taken something from your childhood where you were overweight and you just went, I'm going to fix this. And then your studies and your endeavours have led you into making life better for other women. And I know there's such a need out there for women to understand this phase of life. And you bring to the table joy in this phase that a lot of women don't look forward to. Like, we've always kind of been told, oh, menopause, like this dark cloud over it.
Yeah, we almost regret it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But the way you present it is a moment of life where you can be excited and you've got a future ahead and you can find your purpose, and that focus on body image doesn't have to be so much in your face, but more so to create a healthy body to go forward with. So I love the hope that you bring, and I love the joy that you have, and I know you're going to impact so many more lives, and your life is going to be amazing. Your best days are yet ahead.
Oh, I'm excited.
I actually, listening to your story, I love the evolution of you.
Yeah.
So you've gone from bodybuilding, then you went into nutrition, and you've kind of like just added more information, more knowledge, more experience, and you just keep adding layers to your life. But I love the fact that you are not even in the perimenopausal stage, but you're already looking ahead for those that are, whereas most people would probably look for through their own experience, but you're looking
proactive.
ahead.
I'm always being proactive.
Yeah,
you're a step ahead of the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you can prevent something that you know is coming, like, why not have the best opportunity to do that?
Yeah.
That's great.
So you're helping, because normally we help the generation below, but you're helping the generation ahead, which I think is remarkable.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's been awesome having you on the show
thanks
today.
for being with. And before we go, your business is Nutrition to Soar.
It is. Yep.
And how can someone get in touch with you?
So I have a website under my own name, so angeliqueclark.com.au. You can send me a DM on Instagram. I'm angeliqueclark_nutrition. We do obviously one-on-one. I do have a sub-coach as well that I handpick. I waited for her for so long. It's very rare to find somebody that wants to work in the perimenopausal space as dietitian. So I'm super chuffed to have her with me along the journey. And because I needed to create, a ripple impact, I've now created an online group course called Finding Your Wings as as well, and I run a membership called Continue to Soar.
Great.
And on Instagram, you're...
Ange Clark _nutrition.
Yep. Perfect. So go check her out. You might have to wait a long time if you want an appointment.
It's a bit better now that my sub-coach is with me.
But it's worth the wait, I can assure you.
Thanks, Ange.
How good was meeting Ange?
I know. I'm glad you got to meet her. She has got so much knowledge and has really changed my life in lots of ways. So it was so good to have her here because I know the wisdom that she can share can really help a lot of people.
Yes, and I love her joy and energy, especially for this phase of life that a lot of women go into feeling a bit nervous about, or like I said earlier, like there's a dark cloud over those middle-aged years, but really it's a perspective changer, isn't it? It's just,
well, I think there's the information out there doesn't hold out much hope for middle-aged women. It's basically, these few years of your life are really going to suck, just suck it up, get over it, and then you'll get through it. But it doesn't have to be that way. And she's got all the science and all the information to really know how to help you. And as I said, I feel like I'm actually thriving more in this period of time in my life than probably any other. And so it doesn't have to be what the narrative out there is, that menopause, perimenopause, what sucks.
That's right.
So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a poem. Honey, you're my sugar.